Welcome to CONEXEC, a global leadership platform for construction executives. This podcast is delivered weekly with construction executives. I'm interviewing Josh Branscum today from Branscum Construction, and he's going to kind of give us some background on himself and kind of the company and a little bit. So, Josh, how you doing this morning?
Good, Scott, man. Appreciate the opportunity to actually, it's the first podcast I've ever been on. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you today and to be able to tell you a little bit about our company and kind of what we do at Branscum Construction.
So before we jump into about Branscum Construction, tell us a little bit about you and kind of your background. I know a little bit about your background, but I don't think our audience doesn't. So kind of tell us your story.
Okay. Well, once again, I'm Josh Branscum. I'm a Branscum Construction Company. I'm the executive vice president, but I started our company as a family-owned company. My grandpa actually started the company, so that played a huge role in my interest in the construction industry. And I guess to tell my background, I have to actually tell a little bit about the company's background as well, because they kind of go hand in hand, if that's all right with you.
That's fine.
Yeah. So my grandpa, Paul Branscum, and my father, Steve Branscum, Branscum Construction started in 1977. That's when we were officially incorporated. So we're coming up on 43 years. But prior to that time, my grandfather, he was a heavy equipment operator. He was kind of one of these guys that he just had a knack for operating equipment, and it didn't really matter what type it was. He was going to figure out, how to operate it. It's kind of one of those. So, and then my dad also, he was always into construction as well, but they, they started out with just operating heavy equipment and doing just small jobs here and there, and also farming. And they got into moving houses. That was one of the things that they did. And then from there, they went on to doing metal buildings, kind of the metal buildings that, the pre-engineered metal buildings. And then they decided in 1977 to incorporate. And so from there, they started off continuing the kind of the pre-engineered metal buildings and, small commercial work. And then my grandfather, unfortunately, passed away in 1983. And so my dad was, I think he was probably 28 years old, and had a construction company now to run. And so really that's kind of where the company started. And really throughout my whole life, anytime I was around heavy equipment, even as a kid, going out to job sites and getting to watch heavy equipment operate, that was always exciting to me. And then through high school and even into college, I always worked on construction sites.
Mm-hmm.
So really I've grown up around construction my whole life. But, coming out of high school, I actually wasn't going into college. I wasn't going to go into construction. I was actually going to go into medicine. And, I was fortunate. I played college football for Georgetown College. So about my sophomore year, I decided that I was not going to go into medicine anymore, and was going to go into construction, go into the family business. And really what did that was what kind of made that decision was, every summer I would work on job sites, and even in college. And, for me, that was also a good way too, to stay acclimated to the weather, the heat, because I was playing football at that, training for football at that time in the off season as well. So it was actually pretty good training, having a hard hat on all day out in the hot sun. And that way, when fall came around and we started, 3 days, you were in pretty good shape and already used to the heat. And, you were already used to all that. But we, working on those job sites, it always kind of pulled me back in, to the industry. like I always just loved being out there and working in construction. And so, after my sophomore year, I came back to school and changed my major and went on to become an organizational communication major at Georgetown, which that's just pretty much it's consulting is what it is. And so I graduated from Georgetown, and then after that, I went over to EKU and went through the construction management program, and the rest is history. Graduated from there and came back home and started working in the business. So, that's kind of that's how I've always been around it. Got away from it from a few years, but like I said, it always pulled me back in. It's just something that I love to do.
It's funny how well, first off, congratulations on your guys' company being third generation. Most companies don't last that long, somebody loses interest or they sell off or something happens. So that's a significant accomplishment. Secondly, that is a great story, because very few times do you hear, people kind of coming for the trades and eventually working themselves into a business. And as far as Branscum as a company, could you describe it today, what it looks like?
Yeah, so we're general contractors, construction managers, and design build, and we do vertical construction. We focus on commercial work, industrial, schools. We do a lot of school work, and that's probably one of our biggest markets. And we've always been pretty diverse in the sense that if you want to build a church, we can show you, 10, 15 church projects. If you want to build a bank, we can show you 10, 15 bank projects. So it's kind of, and sometimes we kind of wonder, all right, do we need to become more focused on one specific industry or, sector and really focus on that and push that, or do we stay, diverse? And, that's something that we've always kind of juggled back and forth on whether to really focus in on a specific market segment. But, what we found is that sometimes, there might be a lot of school work going on, and sometimes there may not be. Well, in the times that there's not, there might be more private work going on and more industrial work. And so we've always kept a pretty, diversified portfolio of projects. And if you look at the projects we've got going on now, I mean, they're all pretty diverse. So, that's kind of where Branscum is. And then we also have a sister company called Precision, and they were formed in 1990. And a lot of people have probably seen Precision, but they didn't know it's a Branscum company. And Precision is a pre-engineered metal building erector, and they do all of the the large pre-engineered metal buildings. And right now they're in 6 states, and they're usually, from a square footage standpoint, usually one of the top 10 in the country. So that's kind of another company of ours that a lot of people may see a Precision truck on job sites, but that's also a Branscum company as well. So
how did Precision kind of grow out of it? Did it grow, or was it purchased, or?
No, it actually, so that brings us back to my grandfather and my dad, when they first started doing, just kind of the small pre-engineered metal buildings and, just throwing them up here and there. And so they, it kind of came from that, and we always kept that going. But what you run into is, a competitor may not want to see a Branscum truck on their job site putting up their metal building. And so we kind of made a decision, or I did, my father did, in 1990 to just start that as a totally different company, and with a different name. And, they still know it's a Branscum company, mm-hmm. but it's just a subcontractor. So really Precision has, it's grown organically, and they've built a good reputation and do a lot of pre-engineered metal buildings for, some of the folks you've even had on your podcast, and a lot of the big national firms, and they stay pretty spread out. So, that's another part of the kind of the Branscum companies.
What's it's probably good during times like these to be as diverse as you guys are, because there's few companies out there that could do both public and private work like you guys do, or at the scale you guys do. So, I'm sure that's probably a wise strategic decision there, because you're right. One time you're up, and shoot, if you would have gone back 6 weeks ago, there's plenty of private construction. So,
Yeah.
But
here we are. April the 2nd. So, we're right in the middle of the COVID-19, and private work is just at a standstill. And to get going into the school work, that was back in the 80s is when they made the decision to start doing more school work, because that's when interest rates were through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And so really school construction and public work was the only thing really going on, because the private sector is just interest rates were so high, so not a lot going on. So that was kind of one of those tipping points of kind of, all right, we're going to go towards another market here.
So what do you guys, do you guys have any 5 or 10 year plans? I mean, obviously, your dad is going to retire sooner or later. I don't know how old your dad is right now, but I think if I'm mistaken, your dad's in his 50s.
He's actually he was born in he's 65. So
wow, he don't look like he's 65.
No, and he doesn't operate like that either. I mean, he operates like it don't, listen, you know how it is in our industry. I mean, you can't be in our industry not be an early riser. So,
yeah.
My whole life I've got up early, and same thing with him. I still can't beat him to the office. So,
oh, wow.
I mean, he's just one of those, man. He just, he loves it, and he just keeps on going. So, but it's all good. I mean, that's what you want. That's what he loves.
What's your guys' 5 and 10 year plan? I mean, not necessarily about just leadership, but like, the business in general. Are you guys going to branch out to other things, grow your existing?
Yeah. So we have a 5-year plan. We're probably on year 6 or 7 of our 5-year plan. So, that's going to be, it's about time for us. We usually hire a firm to come in and, do the consulting and kind of, look at everything and operations and look at your branding and all that. But, I would say probably the thing that we're going to focus on, there's been times where we've thought about, all right, starting our own, concrete division, or starting our own masonry division. And we just, for us, that's never really worked out. And I don't really know why that is, but it's just never really, it's almost like just, stick to what and stick to the things that you're good at and focus on that. So, I think we'll continue to we're always big on strategic growth. And that's, picking the right projects and growing that way. We've never been one to really go after every single project. It's gotta be the right fit, and just kind of grow that way. And, Precision has grown, they've grown quite a bit here in the past few years. And so we'll continue to, they spent so much time building that reputation and kind of being that subcontractor of choice. And I think we'll continue to really push Precision and to grow Precision. And Branscum, like I said, really focus on that strategic growth, picking the right projects and the right owners and the right partners to work with.
What do you think is the most significant event that has shaped your guys' business model?
Um,
And I know that's
well,
tough because with a company like you guys go
yeah,
way back, and there's probably a whole bunch of events that occurred.
you know, and this is, I would say, that the 80s when we were talking about, the interest rates and really starting to go towards that school construction market, because that is one of the things that we have been known for, that we are known for, is our
Hmm.
school construction. So I would say that has been that was a pretty big turning point for us. Precision, no doubt. 1990 was a um, big turning point for us. And then I would say probably the recession in '08. Um, that really made us. It kind of changed the way we operated,
Hmm.
in the sense that it made us stop and really think about, okay, no matter how streamlined you run, I think that it sometimes things like that are good because it makes you stop and really you see a lot of things that you do that probably aren't that efficient. And so it makes you really focus on your efficiency and how can we do this better, and kind of the constant improvement mindset. And I think that what we're dealing with, right now, I think that's going to change the way we operate.
Hmm. And that's a good. I mean, that's a good point right there. That I mean, who would have thought even a month ago that we'd be where we are now? So um,
I've
d-
got, I've got one of my estimators. He's been with us for almost 40 years, and he's using Zoom meeting on his iPhone. I mean, it's just, I mean,
uh,
there's just things like that I mean, Scott, I really do think it might change the way that, I mean, I think face to face is always going to be important,
mhm.
but I think it's going to make us look at some of these efficiencies and, hey, maybe there is some things we can do that change the way we operate and maybe be more efficient.
And we've always been slow to change. So you're right, man. This may be the things that really changes everything. I wish it wasn't so painful, but but
Yeah, yeah,
but because this has really been a pretty phenomenal event. A lot of my younger guys look at me and they say, "Have you ever seen anything like this?" And and really economically, you could say, well, very similar to 2007 through 2009 in the fact that the bottom dropped out. This is
yeah.
much more sudden and maybe much shorter. I'm crossing my fingers there. So
Me too, brother. Yeah, me too. Dad and I, we've talked about it, and our management team. I mean, this is one of those things where there's not a playbook for it. I mean, you're having to. I mean, you're having to make your playbook as you go with this, um, because who would ever thought that we'd have to operate and not be able to be within 6 foot of someone,
I know
you know,
it
and
is a crazy time. I mean, and it kind of, I know it didn't come out of nowhere, but it feels like it came out of nowhere.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's almost within a week, and it's I like to always try to focus on how we can make things better, and that constant improvement. But this is one of those things where it's just it's I mean, it's put the hammer down on you to make you think that way. So it's going to be interesting. And like I said, I think this could be one of those times. And I'm like you. I hope it's not. I hope it's not. I hope it's not a drawn out thing. But I think it is going to make us realize that there are some things that we can take out of this, and from a positive standpoint, and be more efficient.
Um, Personally, what do you think that skills and ability that you have, that have helped the business now, and you think are going to help the business before? And I know that's tough because a lot of people don't like to talk about, hey, there's the strengths that they have or whatever. But uh, how do you think, what are you going to be able to bring to the table to help Branscum into the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it perfect. I mean, I think we're all better at telling our faults than we are at things
Hmm.
that we're good at. You know, I'm in an interesting situation in that I'm getting to work with. I mean, I have the opportunity, and I'm fortunate that I get to work with my dad and family. And when I first, when I first came in and came into the business, you know, we dad would see something one way and I would see something another way. And, what that's done is that's kind of forced us because we had the same end goal in mind, but we might have had different ways of getting to that. And I think that being able to work with family and work with my dad and I think that's been, I mean, that's been a blessing for me because and I think the company as well because number one, we work well together. Um, we bring two different perspectives a lot of times on how to go about doing something, and we've been fortunate that we've always found a good way to tackle problems or challenges, and so you know that's been really good for me. Um, we I think growing up in construction has been is important to where I'm at now. Um, I started as a laborer, um, carpenter by trade, and then a lot of the guys that are superintendents now are the guys that I came up under and that I worked under. Um, there's probably half of our workforce that's been with us for over 20 years,
Oh, wow.
and got some that are and got some that are 30 and 40 years. So a lot of those guys have seen me grow up in the industry, and when sometimes they'll tell stories on me from when I was little. But I mean, they've seen me grow up, and I was fortunate that I got to understand the industry through senior guys and guys who took the time to actually teach. Um, so I think that that's something that I bring, in that I had good training, I had good mentors growing up, not only with my dad, but also with the people who've worked for our company. Um, and then, I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that they're lazy, but I think that I've always just been told, just work hard.
Hmm.
You got to work hard. Nobody owes you anything. When I came out of EKU, I started off in business development. Well, what was that time period? '07. So here
Yeah.
I am, fresh out of college. I'm in business development, and we're in the Great Recession is starting up, and here I'm on the road trying to find work, and that's there were a lot of failures there, but it also taught. But I won't say they're failures because it taught me a lot of good lessons. And one of them was that you got to work hard, man. And nobody's going to give you anything, and you got to get out there and work. And I think that comes from just the mindset of, like I said, growing up in the industry, working hard, and it's hard work. And then also, our family, we have a farm, and my family's farmed forever, and so I've always grown up on a farm too. So, I mean, it's just work hard, and good things will happen if you do that.
How is my son works, actually both my sons work with me, and
That's
it's an
awesome.
interesting dynamic. It's a blessing, and sometimes it can
Hmm.
be uh not so much of a blessing, but I'm fortunate because I have somebody between me and them, so it's helpful that they're not working
Yeah,
directly with me every day, but um I know there's that dynamic of, good and bad. How's
yeah,
your dynamic with your dad? I mean, do you, I, the hard thing I have is not looking at my sons as as young man anymore. Yeah, or look at them as man, not
Yeah.
my kid, and that's a hard thing, to do. Can you explain like what your kind of relationship with your dad is with the business and how that translates personally?
Yeah, and Scott, that's probably something you'll never get over. I mean, you'll probably always look at. I mean, that's your boys, and you know, Dad and I, we've like I said, I've been blessed. I mean, we've got a great relationship. Sometimes him and I struggle with turning it off. We live like we both live on our farm, and so we're literally a field apart from each other. So we're always back and forth eating at each other's houses and things like that. And sometimes it's hard to turn it off. And because my mom and my wife, the last thing they want to hear at family dinner is for us sitting here talking about work. And but I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And work's work. But then there's always there's that family dynamic. And I mean, it's one of those things where he can always come to me and we can talk about, there's things that I think we're more open to each other about than, what you would be with someone else. And
Yeah.
that's part. And I think there should be comfort in that. That you can throw around an idea or throw around some things, and there's someone that you can talk to comfortably, about those things.
You know what I think is great, and one of the reasons I love having my sons involved in the business, and I don't know how that's going to turn. One of my sons, I know that he's going to probably stick around, but one of them, he's only 20, so he doesn't know at this point. But
Yeah.
it allows you to like your kids to see you in a different way, and because you grow up, and I'm sure you're the same way. You see your dad as dad, and
Right.
and when you go to work, you see him in a different light, And what my daughter once said, because one of my daughters actually works with me too, and she said, "I didn't,
That's great.
I didn't realize till I went to work with you that you actually have a different world you live in."
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting, but well, it
Yeah.
sounds like you and your dad got a good relationship, and that's great. I mean, nothing's more
Yeah. I
important
mean,
than to have a
around the office, I call him Dad. I mean, I don't call him Steve or, I mean, it's still I'm like, hey, Dad, I mean, it don't matter if we're in staff meetings or whatever. I mean, because number one, that's what he is, to me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's my dad first. And, I'm lucky enough that he's also my boss too. So, but yeah,
Well,
man, I mean, that's awesome for you too, that you're getting that opportunity, whether one of them sticks around or all of them stick around or, whatever, just having that time together. I mean, you can't ever get that back.
from your dad's perspective, I can tell you that as much as you like it, your dad probably loves it tenfold to what you do, because I can say honestly, one of the greatest things that I have is the fact that I get to see my sons every single day, I mean, and I'm sure, that's just a great thing. But so we talked about some of the strengths, but talk about some of the failures and successes you've had that kind of have shaped you as a professional in construction.
Yeah, I think coming out, like I was saying earlier, really shaped my mindset as far as business goes, because like I said, when I came out, I graduated from ETU in 07. So, I came out of college fresh out, and, here we go. Here comes the recession. And for me, I mean, honestly, it was tough. I mean, there was a couple years there where it was just, I mean, I've always been one of those people. I'm upbeat, competitive, and just, that's just how I am. And there was a couple years there where it was just, I mean, it was just hit after hit after hit of, just a loss of a project. And man, that can become so demoralizing. I mean, and if you don't watch it, it can make you lose motivation. And so, there were a few times there where, I mean, you spend so much time. You know how much time it takes to get some of these jobs. I mean, you spend so much time and effort on getting a job, and then, you think, all right, you're hearing all the good things, and I think we're the one that's going to get it, but then you don't. And there were so many times there when I first started where, I almost took that personally, and I learned pretty quick that, like, you can't do that. You have to look, like, I learned that I had to look at it as, this was a business decision for them. It wasn't a anti-Josh or anti-Branscum construction type thing. It was just a business decision, and so that, a couple of years there, man, it was, I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And Dad always told me, he always told me this. He said, be grateful that you are getting to experience this. And I'll never forget that, because at the time I was like, you're crazy. It's like, this is horrible. Like, I hate this. Like, I'd go home just frustrated. And he always just kept telling me, you'll look back on this one day and you'll be grateful that you did go through this. And I am looking back on it now, and I am grateful for it, because with all the failures, and I hate saying it was a failure, because now you look back on it and I think it was something that really shaped, how I am, and how our business runs. I mean, like we were talking earlier, it makes you run, more streamlined and lean and efficient. And I think that really changed my mindset more to kind of operating in that way. But it also taught me those lessons of, man, you're going to get kicked around and you're going to lose projects. You're not going to get every one of them. And you can't, you got to move on to the next one. You just got to keep moving. And so that was, I think that there were numerous, and I'd say, failures at that time, but that turns around and, they're blessings to me.
What, now, last big question I have for you before I go to the speed round is, what personal advice do you have for somebody that's looking to, pursue an executive level position in construction? I mean, there's the people, we don't just have construction executives listen to this, although there's a lot. We also have some aspiring young men and women that listen. If you had to give them advice, what would you say? What would the advice be?
Be patient, and try to surround yourself. One thing we always do when we have someone coming in for a co-op is we let them work. We let them work in nearly every position within our office and out in the field, because we want them, number one, to find your home. I mean, if estimating isn't what you want, well, that's fine. We've got project managers, we've got safety coordinators. I mean, there's tons of jobs that within the construction industry and even here within the company where someone can find their home. But I say that in that, for someone coming into the industry, man, experience it all, and try to learn as much as you can about project management, being a superintendent, an estimator. Learn those things as much as you can, and try to surround yourself with the people who are going to take the time and spend the time with you to work with you and teach you those things. Because even if that's something you decide you don't want to go into, if you decide, I'm not going to be an estimator, I'd rather be a project manager, well, you still know about estimating now, because you've learned about it. And so it's not like it was time wasted. You've kept growing and you kept building and learning more skills. So I would say that, if for someone looking to come in and kind of work their way up to being an executive and moving up the chain. Be patient. Learn all you can. Dad always told me you got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason. Just listen and watch and just learn and take it all in. And like I said, it may not be something that you end up going into that specific part of the construction industry, but it's not time wasted. You got to learn, and I think that's important.
Wise advice for sure. So I want to run into the last, part of this, and I have the different, items that we, that I would like you to rate from a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the greatest, 1 being the least, and these can all be 10. So don't think you got to rate them in any kind of order. So I just want to talk about specific concepts, and the first one I like to throw out is scheduling. From 1 to 10, what do you think it is?
9.
Importance. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta hit schedule. I mean, if I've got 12 months of general conditions built into a job, I mean, every day past that 12 months, it's it's money coming out, and just from client satisfaction and just having the reputation of finishing things on time. I mean, I think it's definitely a 9 for sure.
Estimating.
9. Yep, got to have the numbers right.
Contract administration.
Say an 8.
Okay. Design.
Probably a 5. We don't really do a lot of, just because we don't do a lot of design in-house. All of our design build work, we subcontract out the design portion of it. But I mean, I could easily say it could be a 10, because if you don't have accurate drawings and good drawings, and that's going to come back on you too. So
contracts.
9. You better know what's in your contract.
Accounting.
10, especially in construction. I think construction accounting has to be one of the toughest accounting sectors to perform, just because we're in multiple tax jurisdictions, and there's just so much to keep up with. So definitely a 10.
I think I know the answer to this one, but selling work.
10. Yeah, and that's you knew where I was going with that one. So yeah, you gotta sell that work, man. You gotta get out there.
And the last,
I know I keep saying Dad always told me, he would always say, he's like, there's not a person in this office that's going to sell you a building. So he's like, you got to get out there and see people. So this is one of those things I always remember.
And the last but not least, leadership.
10. Yeah, you got to have strong leaders in your company, and that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes or make wrong decisions, but you got to. I think leadership's linked to 10 for sure.
Well, I want to thank you for meeting with me today and take some time, especially during these difficult times right now. This may be a good, I always find it good to during this time to share information, talk to different people, and so I really appreciate your time. And as I always do, I always give my guests the last word. So you have the last word.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, this is the first podcast I've ever been on. So, I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk a little bit about our company and our history. And like I said, we're always looking for good young talent and people who are wanting to come up in the industry. So anyone out there that's listening, and if they're interested in Branscum Construction, we'd love to talk to them. But Scott, I just appreciate you, man, and everything you've done for EKU and what you're continuing to do for the industry, and just appreciate it.
Well, with that, we'll close out Connex today. I do want to point out that earlier this week I did a COVID-19 podcast where I kind of go through some advice I've gotten from different leaders related to the current situation we're in. So if you have a chance, listen to that brief podcast. And once again, thank you, Josh. And we'll see you the audience next week for another podcast.